ladies and gents, and welcome back to the channel. In this video I'm going to be fulfilling the promise I made in the previous one, where I will break down step by step on how I signed my first big clients in the AI automation space. Just to give you guys a bit of an update on my side, I've recently returned from Switzerland for my business trip. I will also be making a video on that, documenting that whole journey, amazing experience, and so I really want to just reflect on it on a personal level, and then also share some of those key points with you guys. Anyways, as I said in this video, breaking down for you how I managed to sign my first big client, that being $4,000 client, within 3 months of starting my AI development agency. Without further ado, let's get into it. Alright guys, so for point number one, before we even get into any of the additional steps that I'll be talking about later in this video, is you have to first be able to take a step back and answer one very important question. And that question is, what is the business vehicle that you are going to choose to go ahead with? Now, choosing your business vehicle is arguably one of the most important things that you do in your business journey, because it is exactly that. It's a journey. Picture yourself wanting to go on a vacation trip to Switzerland, for example, and say you want to get there by Christmas Day, and you're currently living in London, England. Now, in order for you to get there on time, obviously depends on what mode of transport you're going to end up selecting. You can get there by walking, you can get there by cycling, and by bus, by flying commercial, by flying private. At the end of the day, only one or a few of those options, depending on when you leave, is going to get you there on time. And similarly to this example, the business model that you end up selecting, it's vitally important that you end up selecting a business model that falls in alignment with your financial goals. So say you have a financial goal of having X amount in the bank, profits within 5 years. The type of business model that you choose to get yourself there, it's critical that it matches and falls into alignment with current tools that you have in your toolbox, the assets that you have, your natural strengths, the points of leverage that you have, being the person that you are, the connections that you have, etc. All of these things come into play when it comes to selecting the business model that you choose before you even take your first step in getting to achieving that financial goal of yours. And so this touches also on a very important point, which is a mistake that I see a lot of people make, and a mistake I've also made myself plenty of times in the past. And that is, we typically like to look at those around us that are doing super successful. We look at what business models they are currently following, what business models they're implementing, and we think to ourselves, okay, let me just go and copy what they do. Let me just go and try and replicate what that person is doing. But that's a big mistake, because you're missing this point that I've just mentioned now, which is taking a step back and auditing yourself for your unique points of leverage and your unique strengths. That person that you're looking to model or replicate, you have no idea on what kind of connections, what things in their life put them at an advantage over you in that particular area. And so you really have no idea on what it has taken for them over the course of time to get to where they are. And so it's just not a wise decision to go and look at any random person, especially if you don't know them well at all, and to go and think, okay, cool, I'm just going to go and replicate what they did and I'm going to go and get their success. So you can do that, but my point is just make sure that before you fully commit, you have taken the necessary time to audit yourself first. It's important to realize that a lot of these shiny, or a lot of these very popular business models that you may see out there are very capital intensive. They do require quite a significant upfront investment. And so if you're in the position where you're a teenager, for example, just starting off, for example, starting a manufacturing company won't be the best option for you. Whereas doing something like starting an agency, where you need a very, very small fee in order to get up and running, is definitely the best option. So this hopefully just highlights my points. Before you even take your first step, you need to make the decision. Obviously before this, what is your financial goal? The timeline, the amount, whatever that might be for you. But then making the decision, okay, in order for me to get there, let me take a look, let me audit myself. What are my current leverage points? What do I have to my advantage that other people might not have access to? what are some of the strengths that I possess. And so looking into that, what business model best suits my toolbox, if that makes sense. And from that point, once you have selected the correct business model, you're already setting yourself up to be a heck of a lot more successful without even taking the next steps. Alright guys, now point number 2, outreach. What I'm going to do for you guys is just keep it down to the bare minimum on what I've applied and what has worked for me. In the very beginning of my journey, I tried cold outreach, that being I tried the cold calling and cold emailing. As I reflect back now, what it did help me greatly with was learning and how to actually grab and keep someone's attention. But if I have to be honest, I didn't personally get much results in terms of actually converting clients or converting those calls into clients. But the big thing that made a huge difference to me was warm outreach. And this really is something that I want to push to you guys so hard. It's vitally important that if you guys are struggling to get clients, and it's because you've been reaching out via cold calling and cold emailing to people that you've never met before, you really are giving yourself the toughest time, stacking the odds against you. Now, this approach versus something like warm outreach that I just mentioned is a complete game changer, and it completely changed the way and also the rate at which I ended up obtaining new clients for my company. So what is warm outreach? How does it work? Essentially, warm outreach is the process of you being strategic in who you reach out to. In other words, it's you choosing to only reach out to people whom you know. In other words, going to your phone, going to your contact list, and strategically reaching out to people that you feel would be interested in your service. So you're going through your contact list one by one, and you're picking out people that would be interested in using your service. Why does this make such a big difference? Good question, simple answer. The fact that you've already got one very important factor established from the start, and that's trust. This person you're reaching out to already trusts you because you guys have a mutual friendship, a relationship. There's already a foundation of trust. And so you guys can skip that entire process of having to build trust before they are willing to actually truly hear what you're saying and truly process how your proposed solution can benefit their business. And now this not only drastically decreases the amount of time you have to put in to get that prospect to sign, but what it also does is it means that when you approach that person via call or via meeting up with them in person, you're also naturally a lot more confident and a lot more relaxed when the time does come for you to present your proposed solution, because you guys are, like I said, friends. You guys already have that relationship established. It makes a big difference, and I highly recommend that when it comes to outreach, if cold calling and cold emailing is not working for you, that you make the switch to warm outreach and you push hard on the warm outreach with the people in your contact list. It is such a game changer. Alright guys, so getting into point number 3, again, a crucial point that I wanted to highlight in particular during this video, because it's something that a lot of beginners, again, make a mistake in, and it's something that I had to learn the hard way, because it is quite an art as well as a science, and it's something that I want to touch on, like I said. Now what this point is how to price your offer. And what I mean by this is having a clear method or approach on how you sell your product. Now just to add a little point in here, what typically happens is that you would jump onto a call with a prospect, and usually within the first few minutes you're going to hear the words, how much does this cost? And you need to be able to handle this question, because it really does affect the trajectory of the whole rest of the meeting as well as your whole relationship with that prospect. Traditionally, there are 2 ways to consider pricing. The first one is cost to the customer, and the second one is investment for value. So the traditional approach to pricing is the cost to customer approach, which in essence says A plus B plus C is equal to your price, where A is going to be how long in hours you think it's going to take for you to deliver that service, B is how much investment it's gonna take from your side to actually deliver on that service, and C is your profit margin, right? Now, what I've come to learn is that for me personally, in the business that I'm in the AI automation space, this is the wrong approach. The prospect, quite frankly, doesn't care about you and your costs. They only care about you delivering on the results that you promise them. What you end up doing is you end up looking closely to what your competitors are charging for a similar service to what you are offering to your client or to your prospect. And what you'll do is you'll take your price and you'll make it slightly lower than what your competitors are charging to try and give yourself a competitive advantage. In reality, what you're doing is you're actually making yourself just like everyone else on the market, delivering the same service for a slightly lower cost. Now, what do you think your competitors are going to do? Your competitors are going to look at you and they're going to start to do the same thing. And logically, what happens over time is you lowball them, they lowball you. It gets more competitive, you've got to lowball your price, you lowball your price. They do the same thing. And so what happens is very quickly it becomes a race to the bottom. And as you can see, your profit margins will end up getting smaller and smaller. And at the end of the day, with this approach, you really make less and less money over time, which is why I recommend you don't follow this pricing approach. So what you're going to need to do is make the switch from a cost-based approach to a value-based approach. And you do this by clearly outlaying to the prospect monetary value of your service to them, and then charging a small portion of this monetary value as your fee. So how this worked for the $4,000 client of mine was it went like this. Very first meeting with them, within the first 10 minutes of that meeting, the prospect asked me, all right, so what's your price going to be? Now guys, this is where a lot of people drop the ball. Like I said a bit earlier, if anything pricing related comes up within the first meeting or within the first piece or portion of your first meeting, it is vital that you deflect that question until later on. How do you know when it's the right time? Once you know you've addressed. With this particular client, I made sure that I took the time to first address all of their problems, all of their pain points, make sure that all of that information was extracted, and I knew exactly what problems they currently had, and I knew how to solve them. And we had 3 calls until we ended up closing them. The first 2 calls, as well as I would say 50% of the third call, was all just digging into their pain points, extracting what value that they needed out of the system. And when we were confident that we had extracted all of that value and that there was nothing else left on the table for them pain point wise, then we brought up pricing. And this approach makes all of the difference, because now you're able to stack the value in terms of what your service is actually able to provide to them, and you know that all of the points that you touch on is exactly what they're looking for. You're offering a service and you're hitting each of those pain points directly. So when you actually bring up your final price, you're simply stacking up what your service means to them in a monetary sense. In other words, how much money it's actually going to be putting into their pockets because it actually addresses those pain points of theirs. And like I said before, once you've established all of this, you then say to them, okay, great. Now that the service of mine is addressing all of these pain points of yours and it's putting all of this additional money in your pocket, I'm going to be charging 10% of the money it's ultimately putting into a pocket. And by taking this approach, it really seems like a no-brainer to the prospect. Wow, this person is solving all of these pain points of mine. It's delivering this whole stack of value to me. It's putting in this whole additional amount of money into my pocket, and it's only asking for 10% of that as a fee. How do you say no to that? It really is a no-brainer if you have approached the problem from the right angle, which is through the investment for value, or through taking your pricing model according to the monetary value that you are adding to your prospect. This really does make all the difference. So now, through applying this pricing approach, it really enables you to put your business into a league or into an arena of its own, and in essence enable you to charge whatever you want, allowing you to escape from that cutthroat competitor-based pricing model that I touched on earlier. Now, of course, remember, you can only end up charging the client based upon the value that you end up putting into their pockets, and of course actually delivering on the promises that you've made to them. Alright guys, there you have it. Those are the main points that I wanted to emphasize for you guys based upon my experiences so far with this client. I'm going to be looking to upload videos with this sort of vibe on this sort of topic going into the future as I learn more on my own journey. I'm looking to just share that with you guys and add a ton of value. So yeah, liking and subscribing would mean the world. As always, much love and see you all soon.